So my grandfather, he mastered the art of telling stories when he was just a little kid. In the times that there was no TV or radio to keep us entertained. He also told me that we're all made out of stars. We all share this place that is called Mother Earth. But like Latin American natives will call it Pachamama. We're often reminded that we're really different. We have different language, we have different flags. But think for a second that you have a universal language. And if you share your personal story and everybody can understand it, you will find that you have so many common things with people from the other side. People like me, who come from Caracas, Venezuela. And when you hear this, you might think, home for you is like 3,000 miles away from here. But let me tell you that I also find home here in Moscow, Idaho. This is Caracas, Venezuela. And as you can see, it's a city divided by social-economical contrast between the ones who have and the ones who have not. It's also conformed by 3 million people, which means 3 million different personal stories or personal narratives. Narratives have been used by humankind in order to defy mortality. They provide with strength to specific events and characters so they can prevail through time. Many times, these moments become historical so they can mold also the cultural identity of certain communities. Narratives, they can come in the form of illustration, they can be told, they can be written, or all of the above. It doesn't matter how these narratives have been crafted, but what matters is like all of them, they carry a message full of knowledge. And they are passed through us by the use of metaphors and allegories, so we can remember them later on. And it's by remembering memories that we can start to study our own personal stories. And it's in the interpretation of different stimuli that we get from the outside world that we can start doing this. The stimuli can come in the form of an image, can come in a smell, or in the case of this image right here, it can come in the form of a bowl of soup. In my personal case right here, this bowl of soup has a name, and it's the pizca andina. That pizca andina that was crafted by a very special one that I also call Granny. It had the power to take me to that special place that I once was a child. I can remember the faces of my family members, my friends. In other words, I just remember childhood. So now let me tell you a secret. I'm going to share with you something that has been done by several years. What if I told you that I can offer you the opportunity to speak a universal language? What if I tell you that I'm going to tell you how to turn wood into a storyteller? I'm a woodcut printmaker. And I know what you're thinking because I'm making prints. I don't work in Kinko's. And actually turn wood into visual narratives. I'm going to tell you 5 steps how to do that. First, you pick one memory, right? And that comes from a specific stimuli. You translate that memory into a drawing. You can use different icons, or you can use many representational images. Once you draw that on the wooden surface, you proceed to carve away the negative space, or in this case, the white spots. So you will keep your line work on the surface. This relief is going to be ink. Then you can place a piece of paper on the surface, apply a little bit of pressure, voila. You will get one of many, many prints that you can get for that specific matrix. And this is the way that I personally start to interpret the outside world. Many times the illustrations can be a little bit magical. Sometimes they represent social economical situations. Or many times they're just an interpretation of a celebration of a nostalgic moment. My story, like any other story, has different characters. They can be persons, or they can be special individuals, like my friend's French bulldog, which name is Yeye. He's described by my friend James Mamoni as a little Buddha who has the power to heal. He comes to you and he offers you unconditional love anytime that you need it. But many times I don't really get to know these characters that deep. Sometimes they just appear and they just remind you about the importance of this intangible link that makes us human. Like that moment when me and the little crowd were in the presence of this beautiful link between a mother and her child, when she was performing in a jazz festival in a little bar downtown. But let me tell you that many times these characters don't really show everything to the external world. What about the inner world? What if you can see inside their personal stories and make it accessible for everybody? This is where the art has the power to actually create illustrations for make people get more accessible stories from individuals. Stories from people that have been shocked by the conservative practices of certain values in their home that doesn't allow him to really express his sexual identity. As you can see, many times all these icons come into my head and they're expressed and they become way more dynamic and more complex into the format of the paper. Somehow they become overwhelming and they want to just get free from that format, traditional format of the paper. They're asking me many times to become even three-dimensional. In the case of my little friend right here. Because these characters want to become also part of this reality many times. But not it's just only the three-dimensional, they can also become larger in scale. And that's when the practice of contemporary printmaking comes into play. Even asking you to repurpose certain machinery that you use for building, like we did in the first Vandal steam roller project in the past October, where we used an asphalt roller in order to create this visual narrative. And it's in these moments when people, faculty from Washington State University, and even the president of the University of Idaho came together, sharing one love, sharing the passion for creating visual narratives. And it's in that moment when you get together people sharing this one love that I also find the comfort that I call home. And this is when I also believe that printmaking has the power to provide a visual aid to reinforce and empower the voices of those who use storytelling as a way to preserve their cultural heritage, but also to reach more people beyond the borders and the limitations of the written language. Thank you.